You're going on an airplane maybe, and so there's a fast track line, fast track to Jannah. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, guarantee 6 things, you will have that fast track to Jannah.
تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور.
Sheikh, we've been talking in this surah about the Day of Judgment. I suppose what I'd like to ask is, at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did they react at that time to hearing about the Day of Judgment?
So those that didn't believe in Allah, they didn't actually directly deny it straight away. What they said was, okay, when is this Day of Judgment then?
ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين.
And the word mata here is used. Mata means when. So they're saying, when is it going to happen? But it's a form of mocking, making fun of the prophets, being skeptical. In kuntum sadiqin, if you're truthful, then when is this Day of Judgment? That's how they would speak to them. And discrediting the prophets who are known to be the most truthful of characters of people. That's how they went about when it was mentioned to them.
So that's interesting, because we know the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself was known as the most truthful.
That's right, yes. And in fact, there's one incident that comes to mind now, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went out and he climbed Mount Safa. So Mount Safa is, when we go for Umrah or Hajj, when we go between Mount Safa and Marwa, we do sa'i. So that same Mount Safa, the Prophet ﷺ, he climbed up one day and he started shouting, Ya Sabaha, Ya Sabaha. Ya Sabaha was their equivalent of like a fire alarm, because they didn't have fire alarm back then. So it meant everybody come out. Something's happening.
Getting everyone's attention.
Getting everyone together. So they all came out. The Prophet ﷺ said, if I was to tell you that there's an army on the other side of this mount, would you believe me? They said, yes, of course we believe you. And it was really interesting what they said. مَا جَرَّبْنَا عَلَيْكَ كَذِبًا. You never lie. You always tell the truth. And so the Prophet ﷺ said that I'm here to tell you to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he said that, Abu Lahab said, is this why you have called us out here? May your hands be perished. And that is when these verses of the Qur'an were then revealed.
تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد.
The concept of speaking the truth, of telling the truth. Is there a connection between, speaking the truth, being truthful, and the Day of Judgment, and even with Jannah? Yes,
most definitely. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith collected by Imam Ahmed, guarantee for me 6 things and I will guarantee for you Jannah. When you, for example, you're going on an airplane maybe, and so there's a fast track line, fast track to Jannah. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, guarantee 6 things, you will have that fast track to Jannah. 3 out of these 6 are to do with being truthful. The first one is speak the truth. The second one is when you make promises, keep your promises. And the third one is if somebody's given you or trusted you with something, then fulfill and keep that trust. And in another hadith in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said that truthfulness, it leads to righteousness, and righteousness will take you to Jannah. In fact, there was once a companion who was with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he said to the Prophet ﷺ, when is this Day of Judgment? He was curious as well, a believer, but he was curious as well. When is this Day of Judgment? And the Prophet ﷺ replied to him, and what did he say?
Did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ say soon? Did he say, what have you prepared for it? Or did he say, when the Dajjal comes? What do you think the answer is?
The Prophet ﷺ said, what have you prepared for it? And the man, the companion, he said, I love Allah and I love His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded and he said, you will be with those whom you love. Anta ma'a man ahbabt. You will be with those whom you love. Now, we know for us, we don't have the good deeds of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we can be with him. How? Out of our love for him. by loving him. Now, what does it mean to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It means to love his sunnah.
That's pretty broad.
Yeah.
Is there a specific example you can give of how we could do this?
Yes. So one practical example is when it comes to our salah. We mentioned an example of what we should do before we go to bed. An example after salah is reciting Ayatul Kursi. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever recites Ayatul Kursi after they pray, there will be nothing between them and Jannah except death. Yeah. Which means you will be from the people of Jannah just by reciting Ayatul Kursi. So, takeaway message for us today: whenever you pray, never forget to recite Ayatul Kursi after you finish your salah. And inshallah, based on this hadith, we will be from the people of Jannah.
Inshallah.
تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور